So today on Simply Happy Conversation, I have Angel from Alchemy, the business that is around. Oh, she was a science and maths teacher, but now she's listened to her intuition and she is a Reiki master and helps people with their intuition and tuning into what they want with their own transformation and self-discovery. So welcome, Angel.
Thank you. Very excited to be on here today.
Oh, thank you. You're actually the first. You'll be the first guest that has come on for the actual podcast.
Oh,
So
awesome. I feel
yeah.
very privileged.
So thank you. I feel really privileged having you. So let's start with you telling us something maybe the audience wouldn't know about you.
So, something they wouldn't know potentially is that my first side business was actually a makeup artist. So, I knew that I wanted a side business. I knew that teaching wasn't exactly my path. I knew that it was close, but I hadn't hit the nail on the head just yet in terms of what I wanted to do with my life. And so I got a contract down in Geelong because I started off teaching in Melbourne. And I said, well, I'll do my makeup artistry course because I really wanted to do that and learn a bit more about makeup because my mum was a makeup artist, my sister was a makeup artist. So I thought I'd follow in the family footsteps. And so my first business was Ivy Makeup Artistry.
Wow. No, I didn't even know that myself. So that's great to share that with us. And so then maybe go into then how you actually started your business then and became a Reiki master. And sorry, I didn't even say the Kundalini yoga as well instructor.
Yes, I know. It was quite a change because Reiki was not even on my radar at that point. I really wanted to I kept on seeing sort of visions, but I didn't really understand them as visions at the time, of me owning my own health place, I guess you could say. Where a lot of different health practitioners would come and work together. But that vision never really made sense for me because I wasn't a health practitioner at the time. So this is when I was still teaching and being a mobile makeup artist. So I was going for walks with a friend who was going through a really hard time. And one day I remember it so clearly. I almost couldn't be bothered going on this walk. I had nothing left in the tank. I was just really depleted. I found boundaries really hard back then, especially when I was starting out teaching, and teaching taught me a lot about boundaries. And I went for a walk with her and she was so upbeat and she was so changed, like compared to how she normally was. And I said, please tell me what you've done because I need this in my life, whatever it is. And she said, oh, I saw this lady for Reiki. And I was like, don't know what it is. I'm booking in. And yeah, which is very typical me. I'm a Sagittarius fire sign. So when I want something, I just go for it. And I went and had 2 Reiki sessions done in the space of 2 weeks. And then I realized that that was something that I wanted in my life forever.
Oh, that's wonderful. And then what about the Kundalini yoga then? How did you get into that?
So when I did my Reiki training, I did it up in Melbourne with Abby Fox from Reiki and Wellness. And she was a Kundalini yoga instructor. But again, I didn't know anything about that. And we actually did a little bit of Kundalini whilst we were doing our Reiki training. And it was just the same as when I first went and had Reiki done. I was like, what is this? And it just made me feel, I guess the best way to describe it is that I was home. Like I felt so comfortable and that I fit in so well. And that wasn't something that I feel like I'd had during my life. I always felt like I was a little bit different.
Yeah.
But then I did a course, like a self-development course a couple of years later with Tracy Spencer, who's also a Kundalini yoga instructor. And in that course, there was Kundalini yoga as well. And so I got like another little taste of it. And just over time, there was like a seed planted in my mind that I had to go to India and I had to do my Kundalini yoga instructor's course.
Yeah.
And it was a very big deal for me to go over there by myself. And spend a month in India, and yeah, it was great.
Did you love the actual culture and traveling around as well?
I loved it. Again, it was another feeling of like coming
Home.
home. Yeah. And just being surrounded by people who really understand you was a really big deal for me as well. So it wasn't my first solo travel. I'd gone to Thailand to go stay with a traditional healer over in Thailand the year before,
Mm.
which was amazing. But this is definitely the longest time I'd been away by myself.
Oh, I love that. I feel the same about India. I spent a month traveling by myself, and I just felt at home and should have continued with the yoga even then. So when you came back with the yoga experience as well, and then joined them together, so how have you then developed that into a business and moved away from the teaching?
Well, it was more of a case. So when I did Reiki, my training, I never thought that I'd become a practitioner. I was like, this is just for myself. This is just because I know that, like, I knew I needed to do a lot of healing, but I really didn't know where to start. And so I was like, well, this is a good starting place for me. And I was in a very well-paying job. And I thought, even though I'm not feeling great about this job at the moment, it's providing me with the money to do all the training and all the healing that I need. Which, it's a never ending cycle.
Yeah.
But at the time I thought, I'll do this, this, and this, and I'll be done.
Yeah.
So the more that I started branching out, because once I started doing Reiki on people, I realized that I just never wanted to stop. I definitely wanted to keep going. And I did my level 2 to become a practitioner. And so I still had my full-time job, my makeup artistry business, and my Reiki business. So I was a bit busy there for a while. And then little by little, I wanted to accept less makeup jobs. And then I went down to part-time for teaching, because I realized that there was a bit of a conflict within me. In one job, I felt very empowered and very lit up and energized. And then with my teaching job, I just realized that my personality was getting lost in there, in all the admin and all of the structure, I think, as well. I felt like I was quite focused on the well-being of the students rather than teaching them algebra and things like that. I wanted a more holistic approach, and I felt like I was needing to conform to something slightly different to how I really wanted to teach. So there was a push and pull for a while. So I dropped down to part-time with teaching and went into more of the Reiki. And then at the beginning of last year, when I went overseas to India, I was like, that's it. I'm getting rid of teaching. I had this lovely plan that I would come home from India. I would still do a little bit of CRT and teach Kundalini and everything. And obviously COVID hit, but it gave me a chance to, I think, really readjust and realize how flexible I could be. And honestly build up a lot of trust with myself, that even though I didn't know what I was doing particularly, I could really focus on being creative. So it took me a while to get into the Kundalini. I ended up doing lots of classes with Kylie from Kundalini Yoga Geelong. That's how we met. And just to build my confidence up. And I thought, why not? We're in lockdown. And so now it's, I created a course last year called Psychic School, and I started teaching Kundalini in that. So it was all about intuition, trusting your intuition. And I think Kundalini yoga for me is a way to connect to your intuition and your inner self and your body. So from there, I gained confidence with Kundalini, and now I teach online as well. So
yeah, it's beautiful. It's such a beautiful practice, and that's exactly what I felt when I started last year doing it with Kylie. And so maybe talk a little bit about the Kundalini yoga and what it is and what it's, the benefits of it.
Yeah, well, it's essentially, it is a way to connect. So it's the most spiritual type of yoga, they say. But all types of yoga are spiritual, but I feel like in the Western world, sometimes we lose that connection to the spirituality. with other forms of yoga. I know that when I've done other forms before, I'm concentrating on moving and, you know, the breath and all that sort of stuff, and I get a bit lost with the spiritual side of things, because I never really even used to meditate. So the spirituality of yoga was lost on me many years ago. But they do say that Kundalini yoga is the most spiritual form of yoga. It is just creating that union with yourself, which again is all types of yoga. But we do have a special energy that is coiled around the base of the spine called our Kundalini energy. And that it is represented by a snake. So the idea of Kundalini yoga is, as we move through the movements, which are the same movements and just repeated for, you know, 1 minute, 2 minutes, up to 11 minutes, that energy will start moving along our spine, which I like to say, you know, is like the antenna of your spirituality. And so you're moving your energy up to your crown chakra so that you can feel more enlightened and see things from a different perspective.
Yeah, beautiful. I love it. Then that's what I love. I feel that exact, what you've just described is exactly how I feel by the end of a session. And the chanting, I really enjoy the chanting and the breathing with it as well.
Me too. Yeah, I've definitely got people, like friends in the yoga world, who don't love Kundalini. I think it's maybe too outside of their comfort zone. It is different.
It's different.
But I think that's what I also love about it, is that it is so different to anything else I've ever really experienced. And I think at the end of the lesson, I always just feel so cleansed. So like cleansed of the vocal cords, cleansed of my body. And it's just, I just feel really good every time.
Yeah, definitely.
Obviously.
Yeah, no, I agree. Is there anyone in particular who you would recommend it to? Is it like someone, like I always recommend yin yoga and nidra for people who are starting out, because it's not about the movements. What about Kundalini yoga? Well, who do you recommend it for?
That's a great question. And I don't think I've ever been asked that one before. So thank you. I would say perhaps someone who hasn't felt that strong connection to other types of yoga before, but have always really liked the idea of yoga. And someone as well who perhaps wants to get into meditation, but doesn't know how to get into meditation. Because I feel like it almost, for me, it feels like a real balancing of the masculine and feminine energies, because the masculine gets taken care of with the movement and the chanting and the breath of fire. So there's that real warming of the body, but then it allows the feminine energy to sort of start accessing and clearing the mind, when a lot of people say that they can't meditate because they can't keep their mind clear. And I think that that's a real, I feel like we've really gotten confused with what meditation is in the Western world.
Definitely. Yeah. Because, and it is, I like that analogy between the female and the male energy. That really does make sense. And it's not like normal flow styles of yoga, because you don't necessarily need to be moving your whole body, is it, either?
Yes.
That's what I think I really enjoyed about it.
Yeah, it's quite good if you're low mobility as well, because a lot of the moves that I do, I always say, if you need to grab a chair, you know, if you need to take it down a little notch or something, that's absolutely fine too. You still get all the benefits.
Yep.
It's probably not the best style of yoga for someone who is pregnant though.
Yep.
There's not a lot of modifications other than just deep breathing, and that can get a little boring.
Yeah, true. Whereas, so then I would say that yin is probably one of the best ones for meditation, for pregnancy, because there's so much that they can still do up until right at the end. You don't actually, just a slight alteration to the movement. So yeah. So then tell us about how you join then Reiki and Kundalini yoga, like your products and services that you do, because not only that, from just an observer, I also see that your teaching's coming into this as well, into your business.
Yes. So I think it's really important for me, and it's probably because I have that education background, that all of my offerings really educate people about their intuition, about themselves, and about their bodies. I think as well, because self-love was a real issue for me. And when I did go to see people for Reiki or for any sort of healing treatment, they would always like point out what I needed to fix, but then I was lost. You know, they didn't give me any sort of direction. So I really give people homework in my offerings as well. So my offerings are Reiki, Reiki treatments, but I also teach Reiki, and then Kundalini yoga, and now one-on-one mentoring. And it is really important for me that people understand how to access the intuition, and also then, you know, if any issues have come up in their life, in their treatments, or whilst we're talking in our mentoring sessions, like what the next steps are.
Yeah, beautiful.
But it's also like listening to them. But yeah, so my offerings are sort of a mixture of all my skills.
Yeah, and I think that teaching side of it really comes out in your offerings as well, which is beautiful. So what about your top tips for health for listeners out there? Have you got any top tips for health?
Yes, I would say yes, I would say for health and for organization and wellness, learning how to talk to yourself, because we have this endless mind chatter and everyone thinks that that is talking to themselves, but it's not actually communicating with you and with your essence. So a lot of my teachings start off with, you know, take some deep breaths and start asking yourself questions. How can I support you? How can I love you? And then learning to then listen as well. I think I've said many times that my ego loves to mansplain things to me. And I know that's probably a controversial term, but it's true. Like for many years, I thought that I had a connection to myself, but I was just telling myself what I needed to do and what I needed to learn and all that sort of stuff. I never accessed my intuition, even though it was there and even though it was strong. So just making sure that your routine works for your body, and by asking yourself, hey, is this working for me? Because so often we can just get caught up in like continuing to just get through our days, and we don't stop and go, is any of this working for me, or am I just doing it because I feel like I need to fit all of this in one day? So I think that goes for like any sort of movement that we do. It needs to feel good for us for that day. And so just learning to talk to ourselves and learning to be our own authority over our own lives.
So do you have then something that you do, a routine that you do in the morning that helps you to step into that?
So most days I would say that I dance and I put on some like really upbeat music. It's good that I live alone now, because I will crank up the party mix from like 6 a.m. Like I'm like, whoop, whoop, as soon as I wake up. And a friend stayed with me for a couple of nights the other week, and she was just like, you're so awake. As soon as you're awake, you're so awake. And I was like, I know, because that's what really gets me moving. Obviously, on days where I'm not feeling as great or anything, I'll probably just do a meditation. But I really like to go with like having a few things that I know make me feel really good, and then choosing from those on a daily basis. Rather than giving myself, like I have the structure of I'll get up at the same time. I really need that routine. Especially coming from a teaching background. When I first started this business with no teaching and I had no structure, that did not work. But yeah, so having a routine, having the time set up for yourself, like even if it's 10 minutes, and then, you know, some sort of daily check-in with myself and some sort of movement, whether it be dancing or Kundalini or whatever. And even on the days where I feel really low, some sort of meditation or some sort of practice to keep me going.
What about the end of your day? Is that so? Do you find then that your energy is sort of, you know, dwindles by the end of the day. So you're more of a
Definitely.
morning type of person.
Yes.
So, yeah. So do you have sort of a ritual that you do before bed at the end of the day?
I generally dance again, but this time to slower music.
Yeah.
It is like seriously one of the biggest joys of my life, having a bit of a dance. But I have less structure at the end of the day.
Mm.
I think because I am such a morning person, I like to get up and utilize what energy I have.
Yeah.
Whenever I do like a 40-day Kriya, so the same chant for 40 days, for some reason I always tend to do that at the end of the day. So if I'm going through a stage where I'm doing one of those, I will do that at night, every night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that tends to like boost up my energy again. So I have to be in a bit of a cycle where I'm, have a bit more energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for the chat and sharing a little bit of some tips as well as about your business, because I think people love that and have that connection. And if there's maybe teachers sitting there listening to the two of us who have, stepped away, and it's a process, isn't it? It's not overnight that we just step away, because that you still have that love of teaching. It's just how can we utilize that skill that we have in a different way that's maybe
absolutely
not in the classroom.
Yeah, I said to someone the other day, because they were like, I have a big vision and I'm really scared to go for that big vision. And I was like, well, if I had have been told before I started teaching that I was going to be doing what I was doing now, I wouldn't have necessarily been able to do it.
Yeah.
Teaching taught me so many skills and so much about life and about how to communicate with people, like all these different people. So it was a really good starting off point. So if someone's listening and they're like, I'm a teacher and I want to go off and do something else, just know that you've had one of the best starts with your teaching career.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice. I love that.
Yeah.
So how can people find you too? What, like a website or social media handle?
Yes. So I've got a website, www.alchemy. So it's elkemy.com.au, or on Instagram at alchemy and then _.
And what was your name? How did you come up with the name? Where did that come from?
So when I did Reiki level 1, when I first learned, and we do 4 attunements in Reiki level 1, with the first attunement, I got this vision and it was so clear. And I knew, I was a bit like freaked out. I thought that I was a little bit crazy, but I saw an elk, and in my vision, I ran towards him and I just, hugged him and put my face into his fur. And it took me until the next day to tell anyone because I was really freaked out by it. And the Reiki instructor said, Reiki master, said, that's probably your spirit guide. And so over the years, I've just had so much confirmation that he's my spirit guide. So I did start off as Ocean Reiki, but I knew that name was never going to stick around. And I knew that when I changed my name, I wanted to honor my main spirit guide in some way. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing everything you have today. It's been so lovely to catch up and chat again.
It has. Thank you for having me on. It was awesome.
Oh, thanks, Angel.